How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? What's the real truth about Citizen Kane?
It'll probably turn out to be a very simple thing.
Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. I'm Parker.
And I'm Max.
And welcome back to the 50th episode of Better Than Citizen Kane, the highly subjective show where we look at a movie and ask that titular question. Because when every movie ever made is a reasonable contender for the title of greatest film of all time, you have to wonder, better than Citizen Kane?
And thank you very much for that introduction, Parker. You are a philosopher and a gentleman. This week we're taking a trip into the past, present, and future, all in one night, as we pit two titans of miserliness against one another through discussion of the 1970 musical film and my personal favorite Christmas Carol adaptation, Scrooge, starring Albert Finney, directed by Ronald Neale, music by Leslie Brickus.
Woo!
Brickus? Brickus.
Brickus, it looks like. I don't know. That'd be my guess.
Scrooge, Parker.
Scrooge.
It's Scrooge 1970.
Mhm.
What the dickens have they done to Scrooge?
Fun tagline.
Albert Finney's... I like it.
It's fun. It's cute.
It's cute.
It's charming.
I always thought this was a TV movie. It's not. But it has that vibe about it.
Totally.
But it went to theaters in America and Canada.
Mhm.
I think it grossed $3 million. A very limited release.
Sure.
Albert Finney won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy.
Hell yeah.
Which, yeah, because he's 30 in this.
Yeah.
And it's such a cartoony old man character.
Very much so.
And yet it works for me. And
It's
I'm
fun.
curious to know, this is your second watch of this,
Mhm.
right? Because, okay, let's break it down. I'll just get ahead of this. Everyone, this is my annual Christmas watch. We watch this every Christmas Eve at my house. And I have done since I was born. So it is almost impossible that I have seen any other movie more times than I've seen this movie.
That's a good point.
I've watched this at least once a year, every year, on Christmas Eve. And therefore, it's a 5-star movie for me, because every year my family watches this, and we quote along with it, even the lines that are delivered terribly. We mock Tiny Tim's awful little song every year. By trying to sing as high as he does, and it's a terrible song. And I won't do it to you all now, but I could. It's a threat.
That's reserved for friends and family.
That's reserved for friends and family. But this is a movie that I've seen so many times, and I do genuinely love it for that reason. To the point that I convinced Parker to watch this 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Because we have another friend who has also grown up with this film. It's one of those movies where it's not super well known in the sense of not everyone has seen this, but it has like a strong hold on like certain families.
Totally.
I would say in America, Canada, and England really know and love this movie, and I think it survives solely off of that. And also, it had a Broadway musical adaptation. Was it a Broadway or was it off Broadway? West End?
It might have been West End.
Yeah, it had a musical adaptation in the 90s, and then they revived it in the early 2000s, and I don't think it's been revived since. And most recently, it had an animated Netflix remake, and Scrooge was hot.
Yeah. If we're still doing this podcast in like 10 years, I'm going to make you watch that movie. We're going to watch that just because I want to see what happens.
Sure. Yeah. So it's just got a weird legacy to it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Anyway, another one of our friends also grew up with this movie and was like, yeah, we have to watch that. And I remember I rushed from my work party because I wasn't, initially I was like, if they watch it, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you texted me and you were like, we're starting Scrooge. And then you sent me like a text just like, this is kind of wild. Or like something like you said, it wasn't that vague. It was like a specific thing about the movie.
Yeah.
And I read it and I literally was like, what am I doing?
I gotta be
I had
there.
like Emma Stone in La La Land. I had like Running Through the Rain, like rom-com trope.
Yeah.
Of just like, I'm so sorry.
I
And then I
gotta go.
ran out of my work holiday party, I drove the speed limit, but it was the fastest I'd ever arrived at your apartment.
Yeah, you were quick.
Because suddenly I was just at the door.
Mhm.
And I just remember you were like, what?
What are you
Like,
doing here?
How did you get here so fast?
Yeah.
I was like, I had to be here.
I had to be here. I had to be here. Shout out to Matt. Good old Matt.
Shout out to Matt. So, Parker, you've seen this twice now.
Mhm.
It was originally a 4. on your first watch. It's a 3.5 now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because the first time you watched it with people who like this movie?
Yes, 100%. And I didn't have the heart to look you and Matt in the eye and give it a 3.5 when like both of you were giving it 5s. And I was like, and it's like genuinely like it was one of those things that like watching it with people who love it does amplify the experience. Like you were talking about that off mic a little bit. And I watched this by myself, and watching it by yourself when you have no real connection to it, you're like, okay, yeah, like I can kind of view this a bit more objectively now. But I did like I had a really good time watching it the first time, for sure, like with you and Matt specifically.
Lovely. And I'll say this, Parker. It's it's the holiday season. It's a season of giving, and I will give you this because so often when Parker rates a movie that I love, anything less than 5 stars, I go, oh, he hates it.
Yeah.
He hates it so much, and Parker hates it when I do that. I think it's a funny bit personally.
It is a funny bit.
But I will give you this as your holiday present this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right that this is probably a 3.5 star movie.
Sure.
And yet. But okay. Yeah, so is that your history with the movie?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I knew this existed, and I don't know if it was through cultural osmosis of the movie or the musical adaptation. I knew Thank You Very Much. Like, I knew that song. I'd heard that song before, which subsequently is my favorite song in the film, I think. I like it a lot. But, like, that is... I knew that Scrooge existed and had never seen it and only knew that song. Like, it was... It might, like, honestly, it might have shown up on one of those, like, Disney sing-along VHSs where they just, like, co-opt musical theater songs and, like, make Mickey, Donald, and Goofy sing them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a weird little subsect of 90s culture. I might have heard it there and then asked my parents, like, what is that from? They're like, oh, that's from Scrooge. But that's it. Like, you recommending this and saying we should watch it. You and Matt were, like, the first time that I was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So, yeah, my history of this film is 2 years tops, pretty much.
Gotcha. Whenever I do meet someone who's seen this movie, it's like an immediate connection point.
Yeah.
Which is really nice, of just like, I met someone recently, I wish I could remember who it was.
Whoa.
But I met someone recently who was like, this movie came up, and we were like, oh, okay, yeah, so you also, you hate the Tiny Tim song. You think this is really funny. You think this is really funny. You like this part. Great, good.
Yeah, cool.
And I just think that's a kind of movie that has its place and is very special. Is it better than Citizen Kane? I mean, I guess we'll find out, but... I don't have high hopes. But I do think that it is nice to bring a movie that's just kind of like, hey, this movie is capable of meaning a lot to people, even if it's not like the greatest thing of all time.
Well, that is kind of like the ethos of the show, right? And something you and I talk about, like, loving about, like, movies in general is just, we've talked about on mic before this idea that, like, to us, like, movies are about, like, the human experience and, like, portraying that on screen. And a step beyond that is, you take those portrayals and they allow for interpersonal connection in a big way. Like you said, like you gain a rapport with somebody who maybe very little about outside of the fact that you both really love this movie, and that tells you something about that person.
Right.
And that's something I really enjoy about movies. And this is a really good example of that, for sure.
Yeah. This is an interesting episode because it is our 50th episode. And I think in it's fitting that this is our 50th episode because we will be reverting back to how the show kind of started, which is no research, not really a summary.
Yeah,
because this is a Christmas Carol with some extra little bits and bobs.
Totally,
primarily songs and hell. So let's start by just going through the songs, I think.
Sure.
For those of you at home, it's a Christmas Carol. If you know anything about Ebenezer Scrooge, you know.
Yeah.
But there are some little things here that are really, I don't know, they make changes, and I think those go over poorly with some people, and other people go, whatever, it's fun.
Yeah.
But song-wise, classic opens with "Awk the Auld Angels Sing." which is lovely. And also,
excuse you, it opens with A Christmas Carol in the credits.
You're right. I'm sorry. It opens.
See,
it has
that's also in time with the rest of the podcast.
Yes, it is. Hey,
forgetting
perfect.
the first beat.
Max always forgets the first thing that happens. It opens with the song "A Christmas Carol." It's like, and then it goes into like an overture, and then it's it's just this. I do really like the art.
The illustrations are fun. I like the illustrations.
The title sequence is really long, and
it is.
At this point, 24 years in, my family usually skips it.
Yeah.
But the art is really nice. So that's at least nice. Let's see here. So
I'm kind of surprised they don't
overture.
carry that art style over to like the theatrical poster. Like the poster's nice. I like the art, but it's just
fun.
such a distinct style in those credits that I'm like, oh, I would have expected that to show up more in like the rest of the marketing.
I think it shows up more in like books of A Christmas Carol going forward. Like I was reading about this, that it like that art style does appear in other places after this. Oh yeah, let's see. The film features an opening title sequence of numerous hand-painted backgrounds and overlays by British illustrator Ronald Searle. And the illustrations later appeared in the book Scrooge by Elaine Donaldson, published in 1970. So the novelization of the movie.
The novels.
I guess. I don't know.
Cool.
Is there? I don't know if that's the case. It sounds like that's what that's saying, right?
Sure.
But I do really like the art there, and then A Christmas Carol by the chorus. Sing a Christmas. Yeah, you get it. Christmas Children is our first song here because, his nephew's name is Fred in this one, and Fred shows up and he talks to his uncle. We don't have to break down A Christmas Carol. Everyone's seen A Christmas Carol. But Christmas Children, Bob Cratchit sings this with his two kids. And that's when they say 15 shillings, and he goes 15 shillings, and it's really good. Quick clarification: when I say it's really good, what I mean is that's really funny to me, and I quote it all the time.
Yeah.
Christmas Children, Parker, forgettable? What do you think?
Entirely. I feel bad because like I like the actor playing Bob. I like Bob Cratchit in this.
Yeah, I think he works in this.
Yeah. Doctor Who alum.
Really?
Yeah.
Who is he in Doctor Who again?
Paul, I think.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Like, you pull up his IMDb, and the first, like, 3 things are Doctor Who specials.
Oh, great.
Yeah. But yeah, I like him. It's just, like... It's kind of a whatever song. And
Sure.
I think the ones that work in this movie are either ones that, like... have a lot of like character work going on to them, or have like an oomph to the orchestration, and this one is neither.
It's neither. Yeah, that's a good point. It's very much just like, we're walking through the streets. What do you think of the sets in this movie?
Very fun. I like the sets a lot.
I like the sets quite a bit. They have like a very stagey quality that I really enjoy.
Between this and Muppet Christmas Carol, which is like my Christmas Carol of choice, I have a very strong attachment to, like, if you're going to do Christmas Carol, it needs to look fake. Like, it has to have, like, a stagey quality to it, which is why, like, I just remember seeing the ads for, like, the Guy Pearce gritty Christmas Carol where he assaults Mrs. Cratchit. And I'm just like, yeah, it looked...
When did that come out?
It was like 2019, 2018 something. It was some mini-series, and it just looked awful. It looked atrocious. And I was just like, you are fundamentally misunderstanding the point of this.
I like the idea of it being called A Christmas Carol, the one where Scrooge assaults Mrs. Cratchit.
Right?
Just
like,
to differentiate it. That's the title.
It's just like gritty Christmas Carol is a bad. Like, scary Christmas Carol is baked in, and we're going to talk more about that with this, I'm sure. But like, gritty Christmas Carol misses the point entirely. Like, it needs to look storybook-esque, for lack of better term, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I Hate People. Now that's a banger.
That's a fun
surely,
number.
Right?
I like that one.
That's a fun little number.
It's a good one. Mm-hmm. It's got that oomph I was talking about.
It's got that oomph, and I really like how Albert Finney delivers. This is where we really see, like, he's in the first section of the movie. He's kind of still, he's doing like he's doing a lot of that, but he's a little more reserved than how he gets later, because this performance really skyrockets through the roof.
I had it on, and I went downstairs to get water while it was playing, and I could still hear it because it was in the loft. And And I was shocked when I wasn't looking at him how similar the delivery sounds to like some of the vocalizations Rex Harrison does in My Fair Lady. He's got this meh to it sometimes, like there's something about the quality of his voice.
Yeah.
But I was like, that sounds like Rex Harrison.
He is a cartoon old man in this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just think it works. Like we're talking about how Christmas Carol is better when it's kind of storybook-esque. I really enjoy a Scrooge who's just like, hey, man, you know, and like obviously Michael Caine is so many people's favorites, and he plays that a lot more real and genuine.
Yeah,
and that works
bit more
too.
straight.
But I think that came out of necessity when you're playing against Muppets.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie, Albert Finney went, I'm playing against people who are playing it straight. I'm going to be the Muppet.
Which was literally my Letterboxd review this year.
Yeah, he has Muppet energy in this movie. If you've ever asked the question, what if Scrooge was the only Muppet? This movie is for you.
Yeah.
I Hate People's really nice. I really like the lyric when it slows down, it gets really nice, and he's like, kind-hearted me. I think that's really funny. Like, there's just funny little character things here. I think Father Christmas kind of has like a little bit of the, but like I've seen it countless times, so that's ingrained into my brain. But objectively, I go, yeah, maybe that one's not as great, but I think it's fun.
There's something, I can't describe it to you other than just to say there is some quality about the microphones used in the 70s that children's voices always sound shrill. No matter what I'm watching,
awful.
It always sounds terrible when like a chorus of children starts singing.
Yeah. But the song itself is kind of fun.
The song itself is kind of fun.
They're mocking him.
Yeah.
I like that in the soundtrack listing, they're just credited as urchins.
Urchins.
These are like classic street, like British street urchins.
Totally. Yep.
Ash for the Christmas. You know? Alec Guinness has a song. Okay. Let's okay. So this is all set up. We see Cratchit. We see the kids of Cratchit. Scrooge goes around. We see that he's, taxing everyone. And I love when he interrupts the Punch and Judy show. And it's just getting in there. And again, a lot of this is like dialogue is just pulled straight from the book. So I'm not going to be like, they did a really good job. I go, it's a Christmas Carol. Yeah. It's delightful. I do want to say that it's fascinating to me that there are so many people online who have this like grind mindset. And in this movie, watching any version of Christmas Carol, you start to realize that so many people on the internet are just Scrooge. Yeah. Like they are just becoming Ebenezer Scrooge. Just like so many men are just like, I'm always on that grind. Money's all that matters. Female, like females are ridiculous. It's ridiculous. To,
never take a day off.
Never take a day off. Suffering is, and I'm like, wow, Scrooge mentality.
Scrooge.
I just think that's wild.
Yeah, that is.
Anyway,
that's a very interesting comparison.
There's just like an internet culture of Scrooges out there, and they've somehow convinced people into thinking that they have any, I don't know. Imagine if in this movie Ebenezer Scrooge convinced the urchins to be like him. Like, what if he was just like, I'm actually going to like push propaganda on these children so that they become like me. Yeah, that's what's going on the internet, folks. Keep an eye out for those Scrooges out there. But he goes about his day. They sing Father Christmas. They mock him. He walks home. I really like how they do the face in the knocker here. Like, I really like Alec Guinness. I mean, it's a Christmas Carol, but Alec Guinness being like it's nice.
The really slow dissolve is interesting.
Slow dissolve. Like
when you see it, like when his face is actually there, it's kind of a boring composition. Like I've seen a lot more interesting versions of the door knocker, but just how slow it is coming in and coming out, where like you can't you don't even realize it's happening at the beginning, which I do like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's I think I like the slowness of it. And then also we get another ghost right after that, which is the Merry Christmas Governor guy, which I really enjoy.
Which makes me laugh. Just his his non-reaction is the funniest thing in the world to me. He just like sees the craziest shit in his home and just goes, up to bed.
Yeah. Also, his house is like the dirtiest house you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow. But
hey, you think he's going to waste money on a housekeeper?
Yeah,
no way.
No way. Just to clarify, a full horse carriage rides through like his welcoming hall. Yeah. And the man tips his hat to him and goes, "Merry Christmas, Governor, Merry Christmas." Fades away and like Parker said, Scrooge
just doesn't react. Upstairs. Just goes upstairs.
Oh man, it's good. He goes upstairs. He sits down for dinner. He's having a bit of a soup.
Yep.
Marley arrives.
Yes.
What do you think of the Marley sequence here, Parker?
I saw this last year or 2 years ago when we first watched it. I have not been able to stop thinking about it, which is just a letterbox review that says, "Why is Marley walking like a GTA prostitute?" It's the funniest thing I've ever read, and I haven't been able to stop. Just like when he first walks in, is just like,
Yeah.
ooh, the
He's
shuffle he's got.
Yeah, he's very shambly. And it's
Yeah.
Alec Guinness. Parker, you've made this point. It's 7 years before Star Wars, but he looks worse than ever.
He looks worried. Like, and it, like you and I were having a good bit over text, and like, well, it's the makeup department. I'm like, I don't think it is. Like, there's something about him in this movie that just he looks gaunt as hell. Like he just
does.
looks ancient.
And I also joked with you that it's actually the strife of being on set.
Yeah.
And that's kind of true because the wires he was on, because he is floating the whole time.
Right.
Like, the wires he was on for this, he developed a hernia.
Oh, jeez.
Like, he got totally messed up by the wires on this
yeah,
thing.
I'll bet.
One
One little moment he does that I do like a lot is when Scrooge is like, well, why don't you have a seat? And he's like, I will. And he moves the armchair with the force, and it comes almost to him, but not quite. And then he sits midair as if he's sitting on the chair, which is good.
Yeah. And also before that, he says, of course I can sit down.
Yes, that's
And
true.
then he sits in the middle of the air, and it's really good. I do like his weird little hand fluttery motions when he goes up when he gets angry and he starts banging the chains and the keys together. He also looks a lot like Benjamin Franklin in this.
I could see that. I could
Just gonna
totally
throw
see
that
that.
out there. As a kid, I was like, "Oh, it looks like Benjamin Franklin." It's Marley, you know.
Yeah.
There's only one. Bummer. But I mean, he's Alec Guinness is an interesting presence here, and then he does a little song, which is in the loosest sense.
I think that's when I texted you.
Yeah,
I think that was
it
the
is.
moment. I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is this?
He takes Scrooge and they fly out the window. And
Yeah.
he says, like, see the phantoms around you. And they fly through the sky and there's just dead
Just
people.
skeletal
like
corpse.
skeletal corpse ghost people in
Yeah.
the sky flying past them. And Scrooge is like, eh. And this is when Albert Finney's performance really goes to the next level. Because at this point, he is panicked most of the rest of the movie. Just being like, and I love it.
It's always funny to me seeing how they work around actors who cannot sing, and Alec Guinness cannot sing, and so it's just kind of like a spoken poem.
It's
almost.
like Vincent Price in Thriller.
Yeah, truly.
it's like that. Yeah, and also again, it's probably a line in the book, but I just really like when Marley is like, "You will be visited by 3 ghosts," and Scrooge goes, "I'd rather not."
I'd rather not.
I think I'd rather not. And Albert Finney plays him with like, almost like a childlike patheticness.
Yeah.
Like he immediately just becomes like putty in the ghost's hands most of the time, and I do really enjoy that. He goes back home. Ghost of Christmas Past shows up. It's not a little candle guy. It's a woman. Just a woman.
Just a matronly old lady.
A matronly old woman. She goes, "I'll show you your past," or whatever. They go to the past. I love that young Scrooge in the past is just sitting in a room.
Yeah.
And like he explains why, but it is just like, as a kid that was baffling to me, where I was like, he was just like in a room.
He's just
Like,
there.
that's all. Because then they do like a time jump in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still in the same room.
Yeah. It is funny to me, too, like, most common convention with adaptations, not just of this, but just, like, in general, like, this time period and previous, passage of time is always a cross-dissolve, and even, like, the Muppets in the 90s do all of this in cross-dissolves, be like, oh, passage of time. Everything in this movie is a hard cut. It's just, look over there, boom, over here. It's just an interesting choice.
It is. Yeah, so he talks about himself. He talks about his sister, and then they go a little bit ahead. Real Albert Finney, at the age of 30, looking handsome as ever.
Totally.
A handsome young man.
Yep.
He's standing at the dance. We get, they really cut down on, does it feel like they cut down on Fezziwig and everything?
Yeah,
Fezziwig and everything?
Fezziwig feels very brief in this.
But he does get another banger song, which is December the 25th, which is...
It's a good one.
It's a fun one.
Has
It's
a nice energy to it.
Has a nice energy to it. The dancing is kind of fun. And then it goes into what I think is, and I don't know, at a certain point, I went from being, young and watching this movie and just being like, yeah, it's a movie we watch.
Mhm.
At a certain point, I started connecting with it as I got older.
Thinking about
And
things.
I don't know what it is, but the combination of happiness and you, no, like the song, the combination of
okay.
happiness and you, Parker.
Ah.
That too also makes me emotional. But the song Happiness
Yeah.
and being bookended by you, I think is, I don't know, it's very emotional to me. It works for me. I think Albert Finney's delivery of like, you were good to me, and then it going into happiness and kind of the ghostly. I love when the dance number in December the 25th slows down and like this haunting 70s piano starts.
Yeah, it's good.
I really enjoy that. I don't know. I think that Albert Finney's performance is so over the top, but I think that moment really roots him in some sort of reality.
Totally.
And I really enjoy it for that.
Yeah, it's really good. I like in any adaptation, like this entire section is kind of it's the window of opportunity for whether or not he's going to be redeemable, is just whether you land all of this stuff in the past and his regrets and the mistakes he's made and like him feeling remorseful about the mistakes he made, right? Because like we haven't seen him feel sorry about anything. And I do think Finney does a really good job of like their argument when she leaves and him just like screaming at himself and telling her not to go and nobody can hear him.
Yeah.
I think all of that's really good.
Yeah. I do I like the scale. I like putting the ring on the scale
nice.
with the gold. Is that something that, again, this is really the only Christmas Carol I'm super familiar with.
I think I've seen it in one or two others. I think it is a
Okay.
book thing, but I do like it here.
Yeah.
You mentioned him looking handsome, which was just in the archery scene that they do. He looks broad as hell. Like he brings up that bow and the dude looks like a barrel. Like he's just a mountain of a man. I'm like, holy shit.
Albert
that's
Finney?
great. Albert Finney? It just looks super broad in like that shot.
Yeah.
For
sure. It's wild though, because also like I would say one of Finney's other most like famous roles is Poirot in Murder on the Orient Express. And I watched that this year for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's so similar of a performance. Like there are moments like he does a French accent, but they make him look so much like a little man. And like he really can like just kind of, I don't know, like he looks so broad and handsome at like in the young parts of Scrooge.
Well, like,
and then to be like it like 4 years later in Murder on the Orient Express, he's still playing like this weird little man who's like,
which is odd because like my reference point with Finney is 1980s Annie as Daddy Warbucks, and he's big and he's broad in that movie.
I just think he's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's just good at physicalizing characters. Probably.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. He's also the voice of the dad in Corpse Bride. Quick shout out to that. Which I didn't know until very recently. Really, I hadn't fully put that together. So yeah, the happiness sequence is nice. We see him. He was happy in love once, and she left, and he regrets that. I really like I like the compositing of young Scrooge, old Scrooge in the window next to each other, and it's just being like
the gate weave doesn't match up.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So they're just wobbling at different frequencies. Yeah,
that's just what you had to do.
You do what you got to do. Hide it behind a seam.
Yeah,
there's a lot of doorways.
Frame it so specifically.
There's a lot of doorways. There's a lot of window frames.
I love it. It's good. There's something very quaint about this movie's production sometimes, where you just go, it's kind of a little charming. It's got a bit of charm to it in that. He goes back home after this Ghost of Christmas Past journey. The Ghost of Christmas Present. I think this guy crushes it.
He kills it. Also, I love the like plexiglass door that they have when it's transparent when he first comes and talks to him. Fun door. I like that a lot.
Fun glowing door. I like they put some sort of filter on the lens. I don't know if you noticed this with all the candles in there.
Yeah.
They are all twinkling and they're spinning constantly. And it just creates a really nice like little dreamy effect that I really enjoy. And I Like Life might also be the best song in this movie. Maybe.
Yeah, it's up there.
I don't think
really
it's
good.
I think you're right that Thank You Very Much obviously has its place as the best song in this movie, but I think that I Like Life is just very fun.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
I enjoy it, and I enjoy Albert Finney playing his Scrooge drunk out of his mind on, the milk of kindness.
Yep.
And he just goes full Muppet. And this is what your Letterboxd review said.
Yeah.
Of just like his voice in this made someone go, what if a Muppet did
What
this?
if a Muppet did this? Like Brian Henson saw this as a child and he was like, I have to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. I Like Life is really good. They go and see the Cratchits, whatever. I really like how Albert Finney plays it when they go to his nephew's house and they're playing the minister's cat. I think that he's delightful in that scene.
Yep.
It's just a funny little man. He
Funny little
plays
guy.
him as such a funny little man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Beautiful Day is terrible though. And I even just reading the title of this, I forgot what it was called, because in my head it's A Beautiful Winter's Morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I do okay. If you ever do happen to watch this movie again, and if someone is going to rewatch this out there, watch the kids watching Tim sing, because they they are like stiff as a board, just like really just kind of watching him sing.
Yeah.
And I really like the stiff motions. It's so clear that the director was like, Richard, who plays Tiny Tim, he's like, Richard, try, clasp your hands together at some, try and move around as you sing. And he just uses that like twice in the song. He stands really stiff and then he goes like, if my wish could come, and he just brings his hands up, and it just cracks me up. It's just like, all right, Tiny Tim probably should have a
Okay,
song.
Tiny
And
Tim, let's go.
It's the shrill child voice problem you were talking about, maximalized to its worst potential.
100%.
Just the highest register.
This song, like, because my family would watch a lot of like 60s, 70s movie musicals, and there's always one number we would skip. It was there's always one boring ass number, and this would have been
this
it.
is the one that we skip if we skip it. Although in the last few years we've really come back around and warmed up to it as the funniest part of the movie, of just being like, ugh.
Yeah,
it makes you kind of happy when Tim dies. You're kind of like, good.
Phew.
I'm sick of that guy.
I'm sick of this guy. Get him out.
Get him out. There's also, I forgot to mention it earlier, but when Cratchit and his kids come home to Mrs. Cratchit and the other 5 kids or whatever, and they've all just been doing nothing. They're just kind of standing, moving their hands around, like acting like they've been doing something. They're just like robots, these kids. They come home and Mrs. Cratchit's like, we thought you'd never come home. Come see what we've been up to. And they take like 3 steps to like the sorriest looking Christmas tree you've ever seen. And that just, I mean, look, I know that's the point, is that they're poor and they're making the most of it. But it is just really funny to have them be like, come see what we've been up to. And I'm like, you and 5 kids couldn't do better than this? Anyway. Oh, man, I sound like such a Scrooge. A brief reprise of Happiness. Should we talk about the Discord meme that I made?
I think it's funny. I thought about it while watching it. It's good.
A few, like last year, or
it was
2 years
last
ago?
year, I think.
Last year. I don't know how we even came up with it, but I don't know how we came up with it. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
But for anyone out there who uses Discord for your, for your gaming or your D&D or your, video calls with friends or whatever you use Discord for, it has those very specific sound effects of logging on or like getting into the voice chat and then leaving the voice chat. And for some reason, Parker and I were texting back and forth, and we came up with the idea of this video of every time one of the ghosts shows up, it logs into Discord. So I just edited together clips from this movie of every time a ghost appears. It just goes like, ba-dum, and then the ghost is there. And it's like nothing. But the best part of it.
The best one is this one.
The best one is the ghost of Christmas past or present disconnecting. And because it's Scrooge being like, wait. Or, well, because the ghost says, and remember, Scrooge, life is short. And one day you're not there anymore. And then it's just... and Scrooge's like, wait, don't go. And it cracks me
again,
up.
because there are no transitions in this movie. It's a hard cut and he's gone.
It's hard, which means that it's optimal for internet comedy points in that way. But I don't know. We think it's so funny. Everyone
funny.
I've tried to show it to, they're like, yeah, that's
it just
fine.
kind of falls flat.
And I go,
that's too bad.
It's like such a niche specific joke.
Yeah.
But now every time I do watch this movie, I do hear the
yep.
And that's pretty funny.
That's pretty good.
The other part in that video that I made is just when he goes 1 o'clock, and then the curtains open, it goes, and I just think that's also pretty funny because I like the way he says 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come shows up. It's the classic. It's spooky cloak guy.
Yeah.
Right.
He looks frumpy as hell, though. Like, you were talking about, like, some pieces of this are, like, charming in their quaintness.
Yeah.
He looks like a community theater actor. It's a dude wrapped in sheets.
No, it's a skeleton, Parker. Later they show he's a skeleton. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a fucked up skeleton.
It's a fucked up skeleton.
It's got gnarly teeth.
Thank you very much, Parker. Do you want to talk about your favorite song in this movie?
It's got I love a group number. I love a big chorus of people. And like everything I like about this movie comes to a head in this number of like the sets look great and it's packed. There's so many extras in there. Like that shot of like everybody crowded around the house while the dude's announcing. He's like, hey, he's ripping up the book. Like
Tom the Hot Soup Man.
Yeah, Tom the Hot Soup Man.
Which is what he calls him, and I go, so you think he's hot?
Whoa. It's really good. And like I just dancing on the coffin gets me every time.
Yeah,
like
it's
just
so funny.
It is good. It is a good use of musical theater. It is using music and dance to emphasize your points. And like again, literally people are dancing on his grave. At how excited they are about this. And I just think it's really good. I like the visuals. I like the music. I like, it's got it's got the best parts of kind of, that Oliver ! Musical version of, those kinds of big swells of Papa, and just having that, like taking Dickensian writing and applying it to music in fun ways.
Fun fact, both films, this and Oliver! 1968, were shot by Oswald Morris. And many of the sets were reused for this movie.
It feels very similar. Like, it really does in a lot of ways. So that is unsurprising to me.
So there you go. But yeah, I agree. I think it's the movie at its most fun at a time when it's just like, it's clever to be your most fun here.
Yeah, right?
Like it's clever to go,
it's an interesting choice.
This is our first really big musical number. All the extras are here. Everyone's dancing in the streets. And it's because Scrooge is dead. I think that's a good use of this as a musical. I agree. Right? And Tom the Hot Soup Man crushes it.
Kills it. He's really good.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah. And Scrooge obviously is dancing along. And I do like the round that they do where they're all singing "Thank You Very Much" and Scrooge starts a little bit later and sings his own verse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's nice. And then everyone kind of passes on and he sees the spirit and he goes, What do you do to show me? And, well, that sounded like the Worthy Kids YouTube channel. What do you have to show me? But they go to the grave. He sees Cratchit there at Tiny Tim's grave.
Mm-hmm.
The poor, sad little grave.
Yep.
And then he goes, what is to become of me? And this is where this movie makes its mark on Christmas Carol adaptations.
Yeah.
And I think this is what we're going to talk about the most here. Scrooge is taken to his grave and he goes, what? And he looks back up at the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, skeleton face.
Yeah.
Spooky, jump scare, Scrooge falls backward into his grave and falls into hell.
Yep, all the way down.
All the way down into hell. Fun fact, my dad watched this a lot when he was a kid because it would show on TV and they would cut there.
Whoa.
As he was falling, and then they would just cut to him waking up in bed.
Sure. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's too scary for TV.
All right. You're laughing. Is it not scary?
Are
you
the
not
slightest.
scared?
Everything is like hot tamale red down there. It's crazy.
Okay. I like to say that it looks like a Tom Baker Doctor Who set.
It very much does. 100%.
He wakes up, he comes to in hell.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best part of the movie. I don't know what you're talking about. He comes to, I mean, I would say that, but also, like, I think every year my mom kind of checks out at this point and goes upstairs.
Yeah. She's like, all right, I'll see you. Well, it's too spooky for her. She can't handle it.
It's too scary.
She got to leave.
The devil's in this? Scary. Scary how hot they are. Just kidding. We'll get to that. Scrooge comes to, there's a coffin-shaped like plexiglass pad in the ground that is lit orange. He wakes up, he sits up. the backdrop of hell is like melted faces and rocks and like distant lava falls. It looks like the Nether in Minecraft.
Yeah.
He comes to, and he kind of wanders for a bit, confused, and then Marley comes to him. Marley's back.
Marley's back, baby. You think you're going to use Alec Guinness for one scene? No way.
Okay. Setting aside hell.
Yeah.
As we all must do in our day-to-day lives. We know it's coming for us. Do you dislike the return of Marley as an idea? If it wasn't hell, if Alec Guinness just came back to bookend it, would that feel weird? Still.
Depends on what he's doing. Like,
Right.
what he's doing here doesn't do much for me. It's kind of just like, welcome to hell, here's your office, enjoy your time. Like, he seems to, for somebody who came to warn Scrooge, he seems to be reveling in this punishment a bit too much. You know what I mean?
I can see
like,
that.
That's
yeah.
kind of like, I would be interested in Marley coming back as like an 11th hour, like, I told you not to mess this up. You have one chance. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So it's odd for him to come as a warning and then to be like, I'm so happy to see you.
It is. That is a good point, because typically Marley is more like, hey,
Yeah.
we did this business together. I'm suffering.
Yeah.
And I've been given the chance to warn you that if you don't change your ways, then you will suffer as I am.
Because, like, I'm you might know more about this off the top of your head, but, like, there has to be, like, I feel like I've heard about this somewhere. Someone must have written a book about why Marley doesn't get this chance. Or if he did, why he messed it up, right? Like, why he didn't he get the three kids. Somebody must have done it.
If not, Parker, I think we have our next script idea.
Hey.
Marley, the movie.
The Marley
Marley
the
and
movie.
me. Marley and me. Is that taken?
No,
taken?
I think that's open. I think that's ours.
Wonderful.
Go on.
And why didn't Marley get this chance?
It's something I think about.
What's the political landscape of hell that
Yeah.
Marley gets to warn Scrooge?
Mm-hmm.
I also had the thought, thinking about this movie, are we in a place in society where we want to watch a really rich, miserly man have a change of heart? Or do we just, I don't know, like, is that
Yeah, it's
that interesting
it's
to
an
us?
interesting
I don't know.
question. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, not to, like, cancel Scrooge. But just, like, I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
like, is this something that we still believe in as a culture?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. Not to be that guy who, right after the Superman trailer drops goes, do we even need Superman?
Do we need
And they go,
this?
all right.
All right, calm down.
Stories exist, man.
Look, I don't
So-
care. I don't care. In my quick little side about that, I am so plugged out of superhero movies, but I am not above getting a little emotional about asking a dog for help when you're hurt. And you know what? That
Yeah,
moment in the trailer
hey,
got me.
You know
Hey,
what? Hey.
Good.
Anyway, Scrooge goes to
Yeah.
hell. That's what this movie could be called.
Mhm.
Because it's a musical, so it's
Hey.
got hey. No, I like musicals.
I do too.
He's in hell. Marley's there.
hmm
If it were the devil, that would make more sense.
That would make more sense. Like,
But
I get
Marley
why it's
being-
Marley.
Marley being like, because
Yeah.
I mean, he does have one of the best lines, which is they're walking through this really hot hell,
Mhm.
and they enter Scrooge's office. He goes, Lucifer was so impressed by your work on Earth that he wants to make you his right hand man. He wants to make you his
Mhm.
accountant, and he takes him into his office, and it's blue, it's
Icicles.
frozen,
Mhm.
and he goes, it's. I just love the way Alec Guinness says, "You'll be the only man in hell who's chilly." And, like, that's worth it for me. This
Yeah.
whole performance, that secret, I just think that's really funny.
Yeah,
To just
it
be
is
like,
very
you'll
funny.
be the only man in hell who's chilly. And then he goes, oh, here it comes, because his chain is coming. And he's doing, like, the most, like, you said it in your first review of this movie, he's chewing scenery. He nearly chokes on it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's really fun to see Alec Guinness chewing this much scenery.
Totally, because
Because-
I know him from Star Wars
And
and Lawrence of Arabia and clips I've seen of Bridge on the River Kwai, which I should watch. And he is so Alec Guinness. He is so exacting and precise, and this is so broad.
And this is so broad, and it is kind of fun to see him do that. In
Totally.
the same way that, like, watching Albert Finney be Scrooge, you're like, this isn't a real guy.
No.
And watching Marley, you go, this isn't a real guy. But you're like,
They're having a good time.
when these two guys were working together, dear
Yeah.
Lord, But yeah, his like, oh, here it comes. And then, like, they bring the chain in, they wrap him up. The devils are just, they look like British plumbers and carpenters from the era. Like,
Yeah.
they're these shirtless men wearing like black ski masks and black
Mhm.
pants with belts, and they're just pudgy and
Yeah,
like
just
the devil.
dudes.
They're not like ripped dudes.
No.
They're like, they're beefy dudes, but
Yeah.
they're not ripped, and there's just a level of like, all right, guys. Like,
Hey, just grab Tom, Dick, and Harry, toss
Yeah,
them
it's
in
like-
masks. Let's go.
yeah, it's like, who on set? You guys?
You guys,
okay
all right?
being
Let's
shirtless?
do that.
All right, let's just do that. Just like they look like working men
Yeah,
of the time in England, and I just think that's really funny.
that is good.
They wrap him up in chains. He wakes up at home in bed, and his sheets are wrapped around his neck like the chain, which my
Mhm.
dad has said made for that cut I mentioned earlier really weird,
Yeah, I'll bet.
where he wakes up at home and he's wrapped in chains.
Just strangling himself.
Yeah. I kind of like I'll Begin Again. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of like it. I think it's not great, but and the performance is kind of he's struggling a little bit,
Sure.
but with the voice he's doing. But I do enjoy. I don't know. I think he says, "I'll end the story on a note of hope, on a strong amen."
Mhm.
And for some reason that gets to me. Again, I think
nice.
it's just the Christmas Carol nature of the story gets to me.
Sure.
That's
I get
really
that.
what it is. And I think that the movie is doing A Christmas Carol enough justice that I still can connect with it emotionally.
That makes sense.
Then we get a big I Like Life reprise. I do like Mrs. Cratchit's reaction to Scrooge bringing down the Father Christmas beard.
Mhm.
And she's just like, like it's a Scrooge jump scare, and I think that's really funny. The finale, there's some flautists. There's
Mhm.
some people playing bells, and I think this is pretty fun. What do you think about this sequence? This kind of ending,
It's not a bad way of closing it, for
this
sure.
ending reprise of Father Christmas and Thank You Very Much.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice.
it's nice.
It's a nice little note to end on. I like it.
Nice. And then he says, "I'm going to have Christmas dinner with my family." And he puts the beard on the knocker,
Mhm.
and hey, that's the end.
Yep.
Anything I missed, Parker, that you want to talk about in Scrooge?
No, that about covers it, I think.
Okay. Great.
Criteria, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Whoopsie.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
historical and technical relevance.
Obviously Scrooge.
Yeah, point to
No,
Scrooge.
this had, like I said earlier, this had a Broadway adaptation and a Netflix remake.
Mhm.
No legacy to be had, Kane.
Yeah. Yep.
This did nothing for film.
Point to Kane. How well is this doing what it's trying to do?
As far as a musical version of A Christmas Carol, I think it's almost there.
It's almost there for me. And it, like, honestly, if I didn't have a different musical adaptation to compare it to, it would probably be doing better. But I feel like the Muppet songs hit a lot of these notes stronger, like the beats of like the character moments. I do think that, like, again, like, Thank You Very Much, there's nothing to compare to that. And like, they go full somber when you get to Yet to Come, which most adaptations do. And I like the uniqueness of this one in that way. I think, like you said, I think it's very clever to have the biggest bombastic moment be during this usually very dark chapter of the story.
Yeah.
But with that said, I do think, like, as a musical, there are better musicals of the Christmas Carol story, I think.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. I don't know where you at.
Damn Muppets. And then I just become Tex Richmond.
Yeah, I knew it. I was waiting for it. You were the one who almost closed this studio a couple months ago, and somebody had to come in and save it.
I'm sick of these Muppets taking the Christmas Carol title from my beloved Scrooge.
Is that Chris Cooper?
It is Chris
That's
Cooper
what I
as Tex
thought.
Richmond.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, we'll do Muppet Christmas Carol one day,
It's coming.
and we
It's
might
coming.
get to 2011 Muppets one day.
I
don't
love
know.
that movie. It's a good
fun
one.
movie. It's a funny movie. You
Yeah.
know, I accept people's critiques of it, but it's a fun movie.
Totally.
I unfortunately agree.
Hmm.
Even though I do really love this movie.
And that's like, there's a lot to love about this movie, genuinely. I promise I'm not trying to rain on your parade. It's 3.5. I promise. It's not a 2-star movie.
I did a little squint at Parker. That's why there was a silent moment, because I was just like, It is really funny to imagine me becoming a villain in a Muppet movie just because they made a better Christmas Carol musical. Oh, these Muppets.
These Muppets. Yep.
Thanks. Yeah, all right. I really like it. I really enjoy it. It's my favorite Christmas Carol adaptation. It's a 5-star movie for me, but I recognize that it's not perfect in what
Sure.
it's trying to do, because
Yep.
also it is what it is, and it's a pretty cheap production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a perfectly fun movie.
Sure.
I think it's decently fun. I think there's plenty of good, decent to good performances in it. Like I think, like we talked about, I think the actor who plays Bob Cratchit, I think he's pretty good. He's got just a good look about him for that character as well. Like I think
Definitely.
casting overall is pretty solid. Ghost of Christmas Present is really good.
Mhm.
Scrooge, Marley, I think those four guys, I think are pretty good.
I like them.
Yeah. Do you connect with it at all, Parker? And when do you connect with it? Like, I think we've talked about that basically. Just thank you very much.
Like I do. I connect with it. Thank you very much. I do like I hate people. That one's good. Yeah, like there are moments of connection for me, and I think
Yeah.
if I had the history that you have with this, I would absolutely be connecting with it the whole time. It's just coming into it at the ripe age of 25. The first time I watched this, it wasn't doing me a lot of favors.
No. And you're a Muppet guy.
And I'm a Muppet guy. Yeah, truly. Not even a regular guy. I'm a Muppet guy.
He's literally a Muppet guy.
Literally a Muppet guy.
I connect with it, but I don't know.
You can give it the point.
I'm gonna give it a point.
Yeah, give it the point.
Ultimately, I would say Scrooge is not better than Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
And I think we can just agree on that.
I think we can. Like fun movie, genuinely. Like
Yeah.
there are worse movies we've watched on this podcast than this.
There are.
100%.
I did have the thought, and this kind of ties into kind of the next section of this episode, because like we did last year with Klaus, if anyone made it that far into the episode, I think that's a good episode. I just think, statistically doesn't perform the best. But that's fine, because we're not here to statisticize on it. What?
Huh?
I don't even know what that means.
I'm following.
But are the only musicals we've talked about The Greatest Showman and this?
Muppet movie. Muppet movie's a musical.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Puss in Boots' Last Wish has a song. Incidental music, perhaps. I don't know. Like Lilo and Stitch, by that metric, is also like it's got one or two in there.
But I
it's
would
not,
say it's not a musical.
They're not diegetic. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, the ones
yeah,
that
but-
are, they're not being performed in
Yeah.
that sense.
Muppet movie 100% is.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is our third.
So it's the Muppet movie, The Greatest Showman and this.
That thing you do could be argued to be a musical. It's not quite because
I
it
would
is
argue it's
a music
not.
movie.
I would say it's a
Yeah.
movie about music. I wouldn't say it's a musical. No one is
That's
bursting
fair.
into song when they feel emotion in that movie, and I feel like that's a key part of being in a musical.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
I would say.
But yeah, no, that's those are the three.
Nice. We've got this is great.
This is great. It's good.
But I think that does kind of pivot us into, it's the end of the year.
It is
Another year of our podcast, Better Than Citizen Kane.
crazy.
We've officially been doing this for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's thrilling.
Yeah.
This year, what have been some of your favorite watches, some of your favorite moments with the show and with the movies we watched this year?
I've had a really good time with a lot of these. If I'm picking like, I think two of our like better episodes this year, both from my own perspective, but also like, I've had people tell me that they really enjoy these episodes. There Will Be Blood and Fantasia. I think I'm really happy with those episodes. I'm proud of those
good.
episodes. I think we did a lot of really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
I mean, getting everybody together and doing a raucous screening of Greatest Showman was a really good time.
Yeah.
I don't drink very much at all, and getting drunk for that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Um,
I really enjoyed putting together 4 pages of notes on how that thing happened.
yeah,
I think putting the most effort into The Greatest Showman is the funniest thing I could do.
totally.
And I did really enjoy kind of doing the research there,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah. I also just enjoy an episode like it is so much fun to talk about. Like I prefer to talk about movies that I love and like I'm really jazzed about and like surprised by. Look, it's the nature of the internet. Rage content is fun to do. Just ragging on Greatest Showman was a good time. I had fun with that.
Yeah. And maybe next year we'll do our annual
bad movie. Just toss in one that we know, or just like
that we know and we don't like. Yeah. I would say, if I may, some other favorite, some favorite kind of watches of this year, because there were a lot of new movies for me this year.
Yeah.
I think you had some new watches for you as well, but I think for me, I had the majority of new watches. I really enjoyed watching and talking about Shaft. Like for some reason, that's like a nice memory for me.
Wow, that was this year.
That was this year. I think rewatching Daisies was a delight, and rediscovering how much I actually do love that movie. Was really nice. And I also really enjoyed, for Orlando, I read the entire book Orlando, and I really enjoyed reading that book and then doing the episode with you and watching it and talking about it with you.
Seeing Lawrence of Arabia in theaters with you was a great time.
I was gonna say, seeing Lawrence of Arabia in theaters was really good. Portrait of Lady on Fire is like my favorite first time watch of the year.
Yeah,
so I really liked watching that.
I was so excited to show you that.
Yeah,
loved both our guest episodes. Tina
we had
and Yadin
3.
were great. Oh yeah, and Will.
We had
yes.
Will. Yeah, I would say that guest episodes this year I was really happy with. I think that Boogie Nights was a fun. I really enjoyed doing research for that one as well. I think having Tina and Yadin and Will on this year was good. Hopefully next year we can have a couple more guests on.
I think we're planning on it.
I think I just think solid year. I think and also it just we talked about Will just now, but I think Hundreds of Beavers genuinely really surprised me of like how much revisiting that movie impacted me, and like how much like talking about that movie in that conversation, I don't know, I just felt so jazzed like entering and leaving that conversation. That was really exciting for me. I'm also actually pretty proud of the Jean Diomand episode. I went back and revisited that recently because it's almost been a year, and I was so sick when we recorded that. And it was in the middle, like I was going to Sundance every day for that, and like writing reviews for Sundance movies. And in the middle of all of that, I watched Jean Diomand and then recorded an episode about it. And I was like, surely this can't be good. And I listened to a good chunk of it, and I was like, you know what? I think this episode kind of works. Like I think that we approach it in a way that I think makes sense for us. And I'm proud of that. There are a lot of episodes that I'm proud of.
It's been a solid year. I think the biggest shift that I've enjoyed, and you like with that episode, like you really set the template of, first year we were just finding our feet. We were figuring out what this thing was. And there's lots of stuff in the first year I'm proud of and really enjoy.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think we found our footing really well here of like research and summary and structure, and like that has allowed for more engaging, more informative conversations. And I think it's made it for a better listening experience. Like I've talked to people who listen to the podcast and they're like, yeah, I always learn a lot. I'm like, that makes me happy.
Oh, that's good. Nice. Yeah. I know that that's something that I've thought about a lot this year, is just, I'm like, there are so many podcasts you can listen to where they'll tell you about how movies are made.
Yeah.
How like so many. And sometimes I go, are we doing enough? And then I go, you know what? We are. Because it's our show, and I agree. I think we've found our footing. I think we've fallen into where we're at and where we want to be, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
And also, ultimately, this is just about talking to my friend about movies.
That's it's one of those things. Like I can't remember who I was talking to about it. Of just like, this is a good time. I enjoy doing it, and it makes me happy that like some people choose to listen. But genuinely, like I do this because it is a locked-in way to talk to you every 2 weeks, and I'm like, that's fun for me. I enjoy that.
And also, it works.
Yeah,
we've done it for 2 years, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
A next stage of kind of this part of the show, I'd like to just break down for everybody what our top 10 movies are as of now. So Citizen Kane sits, for reference point, Citizen Kane is now number 29 on our list of movies.
Out of 50.
So a little less than halfway,
Yeah, close though.
Close, but again, we don't watch a lot of bad movies on this podcast, so
no, we don't usually seek them out.
As it stands now, number 10 is Jean Diomand. Number 9 is When Harry Met Sally, which we covered last year. Do the Right Thing is number 8, which we also covered this year.
Yep,
that was nice. I really enjoyed watching that. And
It's a good
when I was in New York for the first time, that was
Yeah, that's so cool.
cool. There Will Be Blood is number 7, which
This
again is
year?
from this year. The Night of the Hunter is number 6. That's from last year. Number 5 is Cinema Paradiso. That's from this year.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 is Jaws.
Last year.
Last year. Lawrence of Arabia is number 3. That's from this year. Casablanca, number 2. That's from last year. And at number 1, our apparent best movie of all time is Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Listen, I'll
And
stand by it.
I stand by it.
Like, I'll back that up. Yeah.
I still stand by it. And I think that's really I think that's cool that we got a lot of new additions to our top 10 movies of all time this year, according to the Better Than Citizen Kane list. Yeah, and then kind of my last question, Parker, just to kind of give people the taste of what's to come next year, because we are back.
We're
back January 6th with Mank.
Mm-hmm. Mank.
David Fincher's Mank. It took me so long to remember David Fincher's name. What?
Whoa.
But David Fincher's Mank. You've never seen that one.
No, I haven't.
I've seen that one. I'm really curious, having read the book about Citizen Kane, that I'm like, what do I do? Is this gonna? Anyway, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Looking ahead though, Barker, starting the year with Mank, but overall, what are you most excited to talk about next year? Just giving people a quick little glimpse. Just let's pick one each. What are we most excited to talk about next year? And this might be prone to change.
Yeah.
But
I would say. Okay, I'm gonna give you two answers. I'm gonna give you the one I'm most excited to watch because I haven't seen, but then I will give you one that I'm most excited to talk about because I know what I want to say about it and I'm excited for the conversation.
Okay.
One I'm most excited to watch is 1927 Sunrise. I haven't seen that, and I've been looking forward to checking out Sunrise. I really am excited to watch that movie. And then the one I'm probably most excited to talk about. I think the Suspiria episode is going to be a lot of fun. I think 1977 Suspiria I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think that'll be a lot of fun. For me, which of these have I not? How many of these have I not seen? Really? Obviously there are some that I haven't seen. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to. Okay, well, it's one that I've seen before, but I am from an episode standpoint, I'm excited to revisit and talk about The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that was almost mine.
Yeah, I mean that almost happened this year,
and
when that didn't happen, I found myself
quietly
bummed, quietly devastated. Really excited to talk about that film in the context of this show.
Totally.
And I don't know. Is it okay if I talk about your birthday episode?
Yeah.
Your birthday pick? Mm-hmm. I'm really stoked to cover Porco Rosso.
I'm so excited for Porco Rosso. It felt indulgent to name my birthday episode is one I was looking forward to, but I'm really excited to talk about Porco Rosso.
One of the most highly requested topics on this show is Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. Yeah. And I just want to reiterate and make so clear how much we love Miyazaki's work in Studio Ghibli, how important it is as a part of our friendship, I think, as well. I think the first movie you and I ever saw together was Spirited Away in theaters.
That sounds about right.
Like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know that we've gotten a couple of comments in the past of just like, are you going to ever talk about these? And we keep going, yes.
We promise. It is so funny to me that we're starting with this.
Starting with Porco Rosso.
Makes me happy.
But hey, if this show isn't a place where we can talk about movies that we think deserve a shot at greatest film of all time, Porco Rosso absolutely falls into that.
Yeah, you know how many people go and look up Spirited Away in the podcast, category. I guarantee so many people talk about that movie, as they should. It's
how many people
a magnum opus. How many people are talking about Porco Rosso? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm
so there's 4 movies to look forward to next year, everybody.
Some good ones.
Some good ones. There's plenty more that I'm really excited about, but I think those are the 4 we're going to mention here. And thank you all so much for listening for another year with us.
Thanks, everyone. Glad you're here.
And Parker, thank you for doing this with me for another year.
Thank you.
I really enjoy this. This is a nice time. I'm excited to keep going. And if at any point you go, I don't want to do this anymore, feel free to tell me that.
We need to talk, Max. Like, we need to talk right now. Actually. Ugh.
Well, okay, actually, this might be the worst possible time for you to tell me.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You put me in an uncomfortable situation. You planned the entire year ahead of time. Like, when was I supposed to talk about this?
That's the thing I'm anxious about.
That's the thing I'm anxious about.
You tapped directly into the thing that I feel really anxious about.
Oh, no.
No. Genuinely great time.
Yeah,
I think it's been
enjoy
a good
it.
year. I'm excited for next year.
Mhm.
And Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, folks.
Happy
Take care.
holidays,
And,
whatever you celebrate.
Yeah. 2 weeks' time, we'll be back like usual into the new year with Mank.
We're gonna mank it up.
Manking it up, baby.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.